And we are now off and going. So I want to welcome folks from the lobby, from the waiting room into the main session. We have not started just yet. So feel free to get in, get comfortable, get settled, grab your coffee, tea, or water, or juice, or whatever it is that you're drinking, depending on the time of day that it is for you. And let us know, where are you joining us from today? We like to always kind of check that as we get into these sessions, just to get an idea on if people are waking up with us, if they're staying up late, or if they're just kind of right in the middle of their day. Clear Emit's based on the East Coast in the US, so for me it's lunchtime. And I do see we have some folks kind of a little more out west with us. We have some other folks on the East Coast as well. Down in Miami, I'm seeing Houston, Los Angeles, Denver, lots of US so far, which is awesome. Any other representation, keep going in the chat box and let us know where you're coming from today. And we do want to thank everyone for joining us, whether it's, like I said, morning, afternoon, evening. I always think of that Truman Show where people say, what is it? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and have a great day. So from Taipei, thoughts and prayers out to you all for. I don't know how you're joining us, but I appreciate it. Hopefully, you're in a safe place. Seeing the news overnight that you are okay and your family members are also okay. Obviously, a lot going on over there. But listen, Douglas, make a note for that person that they are joining us for this webinar after, what was it, 7.4? Yeah, thank you. 7.4 magnitude. That was wild scenes from over there. And from Chicago, snowing. So we got a whole bunch of stuff happening. Okay, so with that, I'll start some introductions. My name is Mike. I'm with Clear Admit. We are a MBA applicant resource website covering all things from the MBA application process to decision trackers to what to do after you've gotten into school and all things in between. If you are an applicant to a top tier MBA program, you should definitely check us out when you have the time. That's all we need to mention about Clear today. The focus is on Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. And Douglas has assembled a great team of alums from the programs to speak to you all about their experiences pre, during, and post MBA. So Douglas Alford is the Director of Master's Admissions at Carnegie Mellon Tepper's School of Business. Douglas, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Again, hello, everyone. As Mike mentioned, my name is Douglas Alford. I am one of the Directors of Master's Admissions here at the Tepper School of Business. I would say over the course of my career as an admissions professional, I've come to realize that one of the greatest barriers for access to a top-ranked academic institution or a top-ranked program, such as our Tepper MBA program, is actually self-selection. Too often students truly limit themselves to the options that feel safer, to the option that may feel a bit more attainable. And again, this happens for various reasons. Sometimes it's a sense of imposter syndrome. Other times it may be an inability to identify a strong fit with a particular program. I would say for us here at the Tepper School of Business, we have a focus that's on data, one that's on analytics, and that really resonates with many students, particularly students that come from STEM and business academic backgrounds. But there are also cases where this can feel a bit more daunting for those that may come outside of that academic discipline. So I don't know, I'm really here to provide a bit more light on how we view these academic backgrounds and why students, regardless of major, may actually be able to go on and excel both academically and personally within our program. Now, I'll say I'm here, but I'm not here alone. We have a group of alumni that would love to share a bit more about their experience going through the MBA search process, determining what program is going to be a good fit for them, as well as sharing an insight on their experience here at the Tepper School of Business. And, I'm really looking forward to introducing them as well. I'd love to do so just by starting off asking them to provide a bit more insight on their academic as well as their time period here at the Tepper School of Business. So I'll actually start by alphabetical order. So I'll start with you, Chad. And so again, if you wouldn't mind just going over your name, your academic background at the Tepper School of Business, any concentration or area of focus that you actually pursued, as well as your current or post MBA employment.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Chad Zivick. I'm born and raised Pittsburgh, so I'm right next to Carnegie Mellon. My academic background was it was an arts and science technically major in college from Lehigh University, but it was really a focus in theater, so it was not business at all. And then I did get to have some business exposure before applying to Carnegie Mellon. And at Tepper, I studied, my concentrations were finance, operations, and accounting. This was in line with some of the exposure that I had to business coming into it, but that's the basics of it.
No, perfect. Thank you for that. And Jonathan, would you mind sharing as well?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Martin. As you can tell from my accent, I'm originally from the United Kingdom. I came over to the States because I loved a liberal arts education. I went to Yale, where I did history and international studies. And actually, my first job right out of college was working for Yale as an admissions officer. And they kind of tell you when you go into admissions, you're going to be doing it for 3 or 30 years. I ended up only doing it for 3 years because I wanted to either go get an MBA and like go back into like a higher ed leadership role, or pivot to like the ed tech world. And that's what I did. While I was at Tepper, I did the business analytics track. I also did a marketing and organizational behavior concentrations. But ultimately, yeah, I've now pivoted to the higher ed tech world.
Well, thank you for that. And Sandra, you as well.
Yes, hi, I'm Sonia Finn. Let's see, I got my undergrad at Columbia in sociology, but then worked in kitchens throughout the entire college time. So then immediately went and got my Associates of Occupational Studies from the Culinary Institute of America. So prior to Tepper, I was a chef and restaurant owner, spent about 20 years in the food service industry, and but I was using it as a platform to push for sustainability. And that was a lot of punching up grassroots. And so I chose to go to Tepper to get my MBA to gain access to, the corporate world, larger businesses, this idea that I could hopefully have a larger effect top down. At Tepper, I studied, I pursued my MBA. I guess my concentrations were in finance, strategy, and then as many sustainability courses as were offered. Hopefully there are even more now.
No, perfect. Thank you all for sharing a bit more about your background and your academic study here at the Tepper School of Business. Now, again, just a bit more context. Again, I have a few questions in which I'm going to ask all of our alumni. Again, for anyone that's joining us virtually today, please don't hesitate to share any questions in which you may have in the chat as well. I will be sure to address those before we have the opportunity to leave today. But, the first question I want to start off with really goes back to something I mentioned in my introduction. Again, I mentioned there are cases when students have self-selected out of the admissions process, but for all of you, that was not the case. Now, I would love to hear what aspect of the Tepper MBA program most interested you in your search process, and what was it about our program that truly spoke to you and led to you actually applying? And no one has to raise their hand. If there's anyone that's really interested in
I guess I could start. My restaurant was in Pittsburgh. I was living in Pittsburgh, and so it was very clear to me that's how how advanced CMU was in all academic fields, like the robotics department. It seemed like CMU was on the cutting edge of so many fields that drew me there. The second thing was really in the admissions process. I went to, it was sort of, I reached out to several schools and spoke with their admissions, directors of admission, and it was Tepper who, actually Jackie Otto at Tepper, who understood what I had accomplished and what I could bring to Tepper, and other schools sometimes just didn't see that. They, it's not about transferable skills, but a lot of from, if you have a non-business background. But I was also running a restaurant. It was, I was running a small business. It's about how Tepper Admissions realized that like the value I could bring, not how they could make me into a box, like fit in the box of what they wanted in a student.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. Now, I often try to recommend that candidates, if you really look at the application process, we try to provide opportunities for us to physically and truly get to know you. A good example is the virtual interview process. And students can be a bit nervous. For me, that's a great opportunity to shine and let us see the truest version of yourself, because we're not going through the application process trying to check off boxes. We're truly trying to get a chance to get a feel for who may be a great fit for our community and someone who can step into our program and excel. So again, thank you for sharing that. Anyone else would love to share? I know it looks like Jonathan is itching to get into it.
Yeah, I've got like maybe two selfish reasons why I chose Tepper, and then one kind of less selfish one. So I, just from my background, was like the most liberal arts kid you could imagine. And I really liked the business analytics kind of reputation of Tepper, and just thought like if if everything doesn't go according to plan, if I don't go into ed tech, or if I don't go back to higher education and go into leadership, I want to like have a really well-rounded set of skills. And so the sort of the people sides, the soft skills, like I feel like I had kind of already developed a lot of those. And I was really attracted to like the business analytics and the data analysis reputation that Tepper has. I think the second piece is like I just knew myself and the environments that I would do well in, and I really gravitated to like the smaller size of Tepper, like, and not crazy small, because like I do want to network and I do want to find like job opportunities and like land that job. But I did just like the idea of like, oh, I'm gonna have close relationships with my professors, which absolutely became like that 100% achieved that, but also just getting to like know my peers. So those are kind of the two like selfish reasons why I applied. And then the less selfish reason is I was applying with my fiance, now wife. She was trying to she was going to apply for residency, pediatrics residencies, and we were looking for cities that had both like a pediatrics residency and like a top tier business school. And Pittsburgh had both, plus her grandparents lived there. And the more I just like spent time in Pittsburgh, like the more I loved it when we were visiting her family. So it also just, yeah, that was the third kind of clincher for why I applied to Tepper.
And I could finish off there if you don't mind. Yeah, so for me, it was easier and simpler. So I'm again born and raised Pittsburgh, so Tepper is definitely the top of the top whenever it comes to the Pittsburgh business schools. And so I wanted to stay local. I initially applied to be a part-time with Tepper, but once I got in and I talked to them further, and I got to really know the program better, I went full-time, and I'm very happy that I did so. And so it's a great business school. I also just love that the verticals are all strong. So the data analytics, which is where I ended up, is not where I went into. But the finance is strong. The marketing is strong. The operations is strong. And now all the analytics stuff is getting really, really great with the school. So there are so many great parts about it that I did want to go into somewhere where if I didn't know initially what I wanted to do, or I thought I knew what I wanted to do and I wanted to change things, there are options for what you can do there too. And then also, of course, I have to give a shout out to the admissions team was terrific. I loved the people that I met on the admissions team, kind of to echo what you were saying, Sonia. And it was really a no-brainer with just how kind and welcoming and fun to talk to and engaging and all that stuff with the admissions team. They really made it easy to really find out the truth kind of about the school and what it's really like. So it was the only business school that I honestly applied to, but I'm totally happy with the decision. And yeah, again, it was meant to be local, then it became just something more.
Okay, no, perfect. So again, what I'm hearing, and I would recommend for everyone, and I generally do this, is if you have questions about the MBA program, please do not hesitate to reach out to us directly. We're more than happy to help. Now, Jonathan actually mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, and that's actually the MBA experience. I would love to hear. I would love to share that from my perspective. I think, one aspect of MBA experience I find to be most important is actually the community in which you join. Ours is a community that's very diverse. We have students joining us from all over the world. They have different professional and academic backgrounds. And I'd love for all of you to share a bit more about your experience joining Tepper, building a community, and any instance of support in which you may have been able to receive from a classmate.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So being international, like I already had kind of a ready-made community waiting for me. I think I showed up on campus a little bit earlier for like some of the international students, and it's obviously been an easy transition. I like had been in the US for 4 years beforehand, but just made some of like my best friends within the international community. Um, and then joined a whole bunch of clubs like Tepper, the soccer club, the organizational leadership club, which just put on a whole bunch of fun activities like escape the room, organized like a sailing trip through the Caribbean, which have zero experience in sailing, but made a bunch of really good friends from that trip. And interestingly, like, the small like class size, like we did a ton of work together, like was able to have a lot of academic success just by like having really close study buddies throughout my time at Tepper. But I will say actually like probably the most helpful thing that like having that tight-knit community did for me was I needed to stay in Pittsburgh. I wanted to be like with my wife who was still finishing off the residency. So my job search was like pretty like focused on like what sort of jobs can I find in the Pittsburgh area. But I also had this like really deep interest in ed tech. And a bunch of my friends were in the entrepreneurship track and had spent time in Pittsburgh during their summers, knew the tech scene really well, and just said like, "Hey, Jonathan, here's like a list of ed tech companies that we think you'd be interested in." One of which was the one I actually ended up working for right out of a Tepper. Interestingly, also networked with a CMU graduate who was working there that helped me get the job. So yeah, I think as much as you think of your peers as like, yeah, maybe people that you study with, they're also potentially like your the people who maybe like help you get that kind of foot in the door or get that lead that leads you to your future career.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that as well.
Sure, I can jump in next. And I mean, same thing. Like it was great as far as meeting people at Tepper is not only easy, it's you have to. It's there are several social events, of course, that go through it. The clubs are amazing. I was the president of the wine club, and we had a lot of fun. And like there are so many opportunities for that, but also like the work that you do whenever you come into Tepper is very serious. Like you do a lot of hard work, to really learn so many different parts of business. And so you're working directly with so many different groups because you can't ever, just work with a couple people. You have to change the people that you're working with and stuff like that. And so you're learning how to not only engage with people in a social way, but also in a business way and in a classroom way and things of that nature. So that was wonderful and great. And like, I mean, the friends that I made there have carried through. I have lifelong friends for sure. And not only that, but I know that I am plugged in with a network of people that we are helping each other. If someone happens to be downsized or something like that, like we lift each other up and make sure that we try to scour to see what we can find for everybody, and just like if not offer advice or resume help or things like that. Just all that stuff. It's really great. And also, I think that something that I utilized was my first job out of Tepper was actually one that didn't work out well for me. It wasn't a good fit. So I had to come back to Pittsburgh. It was out in California. And I came back to Pittsburgh, and I engaged with the Tepper what's it called, the resource center, basically the people that help you to work on your resume and to apply to jobs and things like that. Like, they continued to work with me after that, and so they're kind of like, I don't know if it's a lifelong resource, but it sort of feels like it. Like, you can continually go to them to ask for advice as your career progresses, and it's just wonderful. It's a really it's a great thing. So it's not only the elements of the social aspect and the business aspect of your classmates, but also the relationship with Tepper continues too.
No, thank you for that. I'm always glad to hear about the support our master's career center are able to provide. Our admissions office has actually joined a space with them, so I get a chance to work with them directly. And I'm often very impressed about the work they do with our candidates.
I'm not sure that I have much to add after those two. I kind of I was happy to do the full-time program because I wanted to be like fully immersed in the academic experience. But along with that, I think I was joining Tepper at a time when just had a very busy home life as well. I don't know whether I engaged as much. If you had sat in the front row with me in classes, then we probably would have been friends. So I would encourage everybody who's applying to think about sitting in the front row. You really do get a lot, but that's about it. So yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, I'd love to ask this question. So for many of our incoming students, they may have some concerns regarding the transition from being out of school for a while, working with faculty, and starting a full-time program. We have something that is designed to really help our students within this transition, and it's called Basecamp, which is essentially our orientation process. I'm interested to hear if you had a chance to participate in, Sonia specifically, if you had an opportunity to participate in Basecamp, and if you also found that experience helpful at all.
Oh, I definitely found Basecamp helpful. I did participate in it. And yeah, it's great. Just little things that you get through Basecamp. Like, you can download a map of Tepper, right? So it's like, where to go when you show up. Anyone who has a little bit of anxiety about their first days, you get all this information ahead of time. Yeah, I thought it was good. It's definitely a place to meet people before you start heading into your full-time classes. Yeah, I mean, definitely would say that was a great experience.
No, that is good to hear. I'm always happy to recommend it as a great resource and opportunity for students to learn a bit more about not only the Tepper School of Business, but also the city of Pittsburgh. Get a chance to explore before the program actually gets started and you get fully engrossed in your academic journey. Also, again, for everyone, I mentioned earlier that for us, it's not uncommon for students to self-select and potentially miss out on the opportunity to join Tepper. Now, I'm a bit inquisitive. I would love to know if any of you had any concerns or second thoughts about applying to the program. And if so, I'd love to know how those concerns actually compare to the actual experience you had at Tepper.
I did not. When I make a decision, it's just race to the finish. So I was, I was so excited to, after having this full career, to then go back in and start learning again. I could not wait. It really is a good way to I don't know, focus on yourself and growth, and obviously education's always great, but it's yeah, I mean, I was just ready to go, no more employees for a little while, just take as much as I can, learn as much as I can. Yeah, no, full speed ahead. Yeah.
Love to hear that.
I will say that I started at Tepper when I was 25, and I was, younger than a lot of my classmates. And I felt pretty nervous about that. I felt like, oh, I've got like 3 years of like work experience. There are people here who've like had whole careers and they're now making like a pivot. And I thought that might actually be a barrier. Like they're like, oh, look at this young kid and like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I actually found people were like very um earnest and like kind of welcoming, and that kind of age gap, me being 25, some of my friends and classmates being like 30 plus, like it kind of just disappeared because um you know everyone's kind of going back to Tepper for a reason. Like they got like a plan, they got like a kind of a logic goal. And so yeah, I think it was just really helpful to hear from their perspectives, and just like we approach case studies in different ways. We'd solve problems in different ways. Like we'd have these like little teams that were formed kind of initially during like the first couple of quarters, and they do a really good job of like having quite a diverse group of people. And so yeah, I was fortunate that like that difference like actually didn't end up being like a real issue, and was actually a strength, because like there's just different ways that we were able to like work together and kind of solve assignments.
And for me, I had no reservations, but I definitely was nervous. I remember where I was when I was accepted and how happy I was. And my girlfriend, now wife, was happy too. So yeah.
Well, no, perfect. Now I'm glad to hear that. Now, I always think it's really good when someone can identify themselves as being a really good fit for a program, do their research and determine how to best highlight themselves and actually go through the application process. I know while I'm glad it wasn't for each of you, I know for some candidates it can be a bit of a scary process, but again, that's why we're here today. So hopefully this information will be helpful for everyone. Now, another subject I'm really interested in learning more about is actually your time at Tepper, and that's the academic experience. Now, I'd love to know what was the most beneficial thing that you would say that you learned and or experienced in your time here at Tepper.
So I've actually got 3 classes that I've found have like really stuck with me ever since I've left. Negotiations, which is taught by Professor Rosalind Chow. Managing Intellectual Capital, taught by Professor Robert Kelly. And Technology Strategy by Timothy Durginger. I've like found that they've been extremely helpful, both just in my professional work, but also just in terms of like my career and like job searching. I think negotiations, like life is, just constantly negotiating, whether it's like over buying a car or that next job offer. And Professor Chow, just like we had a lot of fun in that class, learned a lot of like skills and how to kind of claim the most value and how to like develop interests. And just in my work, like right now in like technology sales, like there's always going to be a point when I'm going to have to negotiate the contract. So it's practical in that way, but I know that she was also like she offered like a lot of advice as we were negotiating our first offers with companies. And I know specifically for some of my female classmates, she would actually do these work sessions where she'd sit down with them and like go through all the different ways that they could like claim a better job offer right out the gate. Robert Kelly, Managing Intellectual Capital, like one of the most fun things he did as a part of that class is he's like, okay, put together your like ideal compensation package. And like that's, what your base salary is, what's your commission, what's your equity. He's obviously thinking a lot about like you managing people and trying to like get your team to stick together. But just as an exercise, it was also really helpful when I was like negotiating my first job offers and ever since. Whereas like when I first got out of Tepper, didn't have any kids, didn't have to worry about like, having a steady salary. So I actually negotiated for like more equity in my first job, which in the long term has been better because like now that company is like starting to get some real value. But more recently, like with my new job, now that I've got like 2 kids, I need a high base salary. So it was just like a good way of like kind of working out like what's important to you, like how do you evaluate where you are, and how do you like then get the right compensation package for yourself. And then the last thing, Timothy Derginger, technology strategy, I just found out was really helpful because working in tech, you got to understand like which of your clients are ready to like take that leap. Are they, first movers? Are they like, kind of comfortable with risk versus those who are like are followers and they're not going to jump on the first new thing. So sometimes it's just about like how do you identify those people? How do you spend your time on like the right client? Um, and then the flip of that is that it's also been really helpful in just determining which companies I want to work for in ed tech, because you can look at the technology and like just from his class, I just have a better understanding of like, how do I evaluate this? And am I joining a company that has like a good product that's built for success? Or is this thing like potentially gonna like, peter out in a couple of years? So yeah, I just remember those three classes really um, have just been both helpful professionally as well as like personally. And all of those professors are still there. I talk to them still. So
Perfect.
Yeah, so I can jump in next. So for me, I think like there were a few things that really stood out for me. One was at Tepper, I was working with so many smart people from such different backgrounds and with different communication capabilities or like styles or anything like that. And so being able to communicate with so many smart people about some complex things was extremely valuable. And so I'm in business analytics, and like, that a big part of what I do is working with the data and stuff like that. But like another major part of what I do is communicating with executive directors or things like that, and VPs, and trying to describe things that are very complex to them in simple ways and things like that. So being able to really establish that sort of capability to communicate in those ways was terrific and wonderful for me, and it has paid off. And so did all of the communications classes, like the little kind of what seems like insignificant courses that teach you how to write a good email or something like that. Like those things actually stick with you and they help. And that's really good. There are lots of those things that Tepper really instilled that seemed like they were insignificant at the time, but they were really good. But the primary thing that helped me in my career was definitely one of the throughputs, or one of the through lines for the courses that I took in finance operations as well as accounting was Excel, right? And so with Excel, I learned how to basically work with data, just basically. Now, I don't just work in Excel now, I work with a bunch of other fun things, and it's great. But the fundamentals are there with Excel. And so being able to work in so many different areas using the same basic software or basic understanding of data and how it flows and how to work with it in a quantitative way as well as a qualitative way, in all honesty, has been extraordinarily valuable. And so that is pervasive throughout all of Tepper, but it's really good, I think, to be able to utilize it in several different ways, because you never know which ways you're going to be using it in your actual career. And so that has certainly been true for me. And I think that was one of the key things that has helped me to progress with where I am with a big company. So
I would also echo what Chad said about the business. There is a business writing course that was great, because if you are coming from, the social sciences or humanities in academia, you have to flip the way you write for business. And so that's definitely something that was very helpful to me. Secondly, or actually, the way that I thought Tepper was helpful is to, we have 4 sets of classes. It's on a quarter system. And so every 7 weeks you're switching classes. And so every 7 weeks you're like thrown into a new environment in 4 or 5 different classes. And so it works with if you have, anxiety about new situations, or, it gets you used to how to jump into a new situation, get situated, like figure out how to get things done in that environment. And I really tried to push that to the limit by taking classes in fields that, that I felt like I knew the least about. So, and you can do that because this is education, and it's a space for you to learn. You shouldn't be going into classes that you already know the answers to things. So I think Tepper was really good for that, when going from, taking investment analysis to taking acting for business. Like, I would throw myself into these classes knowing that there's no way I wanted to get up in front of people with like a speech from Death of a Salesman, but I was gonna go do that. Because this is all practice for then entering the work world and performing. And so I think those opportunities are there at Tepper. The last thing I'd say, also echoing Chad, is that you are working with a diverse group of people from, with different working styles from all over the world. And that is a great training for when you enter, the corporate world or business world. Like, you need to learn to work with people who are very different from yourself. And so Tepper is a great training spot for that.
Perfect. Thank you all for that. I do want to make a quick statement to the audience. I have just another question I want to make sure that I get a chance to ask our guests prior to actually turning things over to the audience. So again, if you do have a question that you love to ask them, please don't hesitate to go ahead and drop that in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to that shortly. But first, and the last question I really want to ask was, again, we had opportunity to speak on the skills in which we're able to develop throughout the course of the program. And I'm sure those skills were helpful in the search process. But I love to also know more about the support in which you would have received through the Master's Career Center, and how they were to help work with you to achieve your post-MBA goals. And again, I know Chad, actually, I think Chad had a chance to mention this as well. So I guess, Jonathan, if you don't mind, I'd love starting off with you on this.
Yeah, I worked closely with Sophia, one of the career advisors, and I think I had an idea of what like a resume was meant to look like, and just her advice was like really helpful in making sure that like I got it in a much more kind of professional way, that like it would actually read well, it would be picked up by like the algorithms that companies use nowadays to do it. I also felt like with the advisors, they kind of leaned into your strengths and helped you like tell a better story about yourself. But then also they really push this like stars kind of format for telling stories, so that like in your interviews you wouldn't ramble, and that you had this like strong foundation for answering a question and giving the interviewer what they needed in order to be able to like move forward and say, yes, okay, this person has the experience, they have the relevant skills. And a lot of that just doesn't come naturally. So they just really, they just kind of armed me with like the right set of skills in the interview room, as well as like when you're trying to like get your foot in the door with that resume as well. And like Chad said, like they're just a continued resource. Like you could always kind of reach out to the person that you personally worked with, or to the office in general, and they'll continue to be like something you can go back to if your resume needs a refresh.
All right, perfect. Now, I don't want to interject, but I just want to see if anyone else had anything they want to add on the subject before we dive into some of the questions that we may have from the audience.
I would just say that also the executive leadership counseling was good for helping for interviews and stuff like that. That was a nice resource at Tepper.
Yeah, and for those of you who are unfamiliar, just to add a bit more context, we have opportunity to provide communication coaching for our students. It's a great tool for them to be able to utilize, whether that's improving on the interpersonal communication in which you may be having with someone that's interviewing or someone that you're working very closely with, or whether that's being in a position to where you can speak to a broader audience or influencing potentially the C-suite. Having the opportunity to continue to work on your craft and improve the communication in those areas is something in which we provide support for in our students.
I wanted to real quick just also give a shout out to Jackie Goslin. She worked with me a ton in finance. I love Jackie. She taught me how to write an effective resume. She did so many mock interviews with me and like taught me how to be a good interview. And like I owe a lot of my career success in finding the jobs after Tepper to I think her and as well as the team there. I think that it's one of the more underrated things about Tepper is probably the career development stuff as far as helping you get ready to really be in the job hunt. And so it's really great. So I wanted to give a shout out there.
I too am a big fan of Jackie Goslin. I get a chance to see her fairly often here, so I'll be happy to pass on that tidbit if you don't mind.
Please tell her hi. Yeah.
Will do. And as I promised, I want to also ensure that we spend some time addressing the questions in which the students may have directly as well. I'm just going to take a second to take a look at the chat. Again, I will encourage anyone that does have any lingering question to ask any one of our panelists. Please don't hesitate to include it. I do see one question here that I think we'll go ahead and start off with. This question is actually it's been directed for Sonia. You mentioned communication courses being helpful for someone with a non-business background. They want to know if there's anything else that you may have identified as being like helpful or beneficial for someone coming from, again, a non-STEM or a non-business background.
Well, I mean, any of the courses are helpful. The thing is, it's all about learning how to speak like the business language, right? And that's every course is going to give you that. It's all like the nomenclature. When I owned a business for 12 years, actually 2 businesses, and coming in and starting to take these formal business classes, I was thinking, oh, that's what that's called that I was doing, right? Like this, I was doing, my strategy was formal strategies that I was learning. The way that I was, doing my accounting in my business were formal strategies. It's just I hadn't learned them according to how I'm supposed to talk about them to other people in business. And so that's a lot of it, is you are in these different classes and you're learning how to talk about business and how to write about business to other business people. And this is what's going to, or finance, like this is what is going to keep you out of the jobs that you want, are other people who just because you're not speaking exactly the words they want to hear, think that you don't know what you're talking about. And so, yeah, I mean, the whole point is living it, learning it, and then you will be successful later. So, but I would encourage, like, it's, don't, everybody is, as you're interviewing, not everybody, I don't mean to talk in absolutes, but people will, there's a lot of talk about soft skills. And if the people who you're interviewing with or working with don't understand what you were doing prior, then they're going to say that you have soft skills and that's it. And they're going to think those are the only skills you have. So make sure that you're taking the finance courses and the operations courses because you want them to know that you understand how things work, and soft skills are of course important. So if you're coming in as somebody who is highly technical, then make sure you take the other side and get the soft skills. But you just don't want to be underestimated because you didn't say the right word. for something that you are fully capable of carrying out. So yeah, all the classes are important for that.
Perfect, thank you for that. Now, I also see a question here regarding entrepreneurship, or as well as support for tech entrepreneurship here at Tepper. I believe it's open to the group as well. So if there's anyone that has any experience within this area or can answer that response again, they would love to know if there is any support for that particular industry, tech entrepreneurship here at the Tepper School.
So I don't have direct experience, but I lived vicariously through a bunch of my really close friends who were on the entrepreneurship track. And it's almost a little bit cultish because there's just a great resource. There's the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship at Tepper. It's the place where anyone with even an inkling of entrepreneurship will go. And at the time, it may have changed. I know he's still there, but Dave Mawhinney was one of the professors, like headed it up, and was just a huge champion for my friends who were going through entrepreneurship. So there was leadership there. They just had like a ton of resources. It was a place where they could just like bounce ideas over about like, search funds and other businesses that they were thinking about starting. And yeah, just having both a space as well as like the leadership and like professor support, that made a huge difference. A lot of them like have continued to do entrepreneurship. They like manage search funds. They're in venture capital. So yeah, if you got the entrepreneurship bug, make your way over to the Schwartz Center like once you're on campus, because that's the place to get started.
Yeah,
I would echo that. Like, it's a great resource. I don't think any other school has it. Meredith Grelly is also a great professor in entrepreneurship. And I did not take part either because I was an entrepreneur before. So I was like, no, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. But definitely I know that everybody who was in the program was always super active, just because I was on a lot of their lists for interviewing me for how to start a business. But really, I mean, they have competitions, they have investors come in. I mean, you can really exit Tepper with your idea that a business starting. And so it is an amazing resource at Tepper.
And my 2 cents are, it was same thing. Like I had friends who did it. I was terrified of it, so I didn't do it. But they loved it. Everyone was having a good time. So there was a lot invested in entrepreneurship at Tepper. So I can't speak to it too well, but I know that like they were never not busy. So
yeah. I'm also a really big fan of the Schwartz Center and the work in which they do, and I had an opportunity to actually participate for a 3-part webinar series on entrepreneurship at Tepper. So if anyone has interest in learning more about the area, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'd be happy to share access to those previous webinars as well. I think there's a ton of information located in them. I think they could be really helpful. But again, I do want to be cognizant of time, make sure that we're able to end on time as well. But I want to ask one remaining question to all the panelists before we depart. So I would love to know about, after going through the application process and your MBA journey here at Tepper, what advice would you give to a student with a similar academic or professional background prior to your MBA, such as yourself?
I mean, I'm just gonna sort of re-say what I said. I don't know how many people are coming in after owning a restaurant, but just generally, like, don't be, just get excited about learning. Like, just be ready to try out any class, go after any path. You are going to meet people who were more, graduated from college, went straight into being an analyst at JP Morgan or something, and then they go to Tepper and now they're in finance, but you can also concentrate in finance if that was not your path. And so the whole point of it is learning, not proving what you already know, right? So just take advantage of that opportunity.
I think to add on to that is that as far as like coming into Tepper, I would say you don't have to be overly concerned. There are going to be classes where there might be some terminology that again you're going to have to get used to. You're going to have to be refreshed on old math subjects or things like that and get over it. But like you'll do it, you will do it as long as you put in the work for it. And then the actual Tepper part, like being at school, I think is you're ready. If you get into Tepper, if you're smart enough to get into Tepper, you're ready to do everything at Tepper for sure, 100%. The hard part is I think once you get out of Tepper, I think someone that comes in with a non-business background will start off generally at like maybe a little bit of a lower position than someone else who doesn't. And so it is a grind. You definitely need to go through working with, I think, from the ground up with all of the understanding, like you will need to, there are no shortcuts to the top. Is basically what I'm saying. So that whenever you get into the workforce after Tepper, at least for me, I had to really get a terrific understanding of everything in order to get to the place where I really wanted to get to. I didn't go straight there. So it wasn't an easy road, with the background that I had coming into this, but I through just hard work, perseverance, you eventually get there. So.
Yeah, I'll just say that if you can find like a mentor or someone who went through the MBA program before, like that's always great. Like I was fortunate, like the dean of admissions at Yale when I was working there, he'd actually gone to Kellogg and then decided against going to work for like Kraft Heinz, instead decided to come back and work for Yale admissions. And he was just pushing like a whole bunch of us to like consider like an MBA. And actually it was nice because like he told us a little bit about his experience. There were then like a group of us who were like all at the same time were considering it. So if you are able to find like a mentor or maybe even more importantly, like a group of friends, family members, peers who've like gone through it or thinking about going through it, that can just start to like get you into the mind frame and just like the emotional place where you're like, okay, like I can do this. The other more maybe practical advice is don't skip base camp or orientation programs, because I found like base camp was really helpful in just like brushing off the rust with my quantitative skills. There was like a couple of really helpful classes that I took in the 2 or 3 weeks before classes properly began. So yeah, I know like there may be a lot going on, but if you can block off that like month before school officially starts and attend like Tepper base camp or whatever orientation program, it's going to make a huge difference when the real work begins.
Yeah, thank you all for that. And I want to share just one note from an admissions professional. Again, as someone that's done this for roughly around 10 years, I will say again, it's not uncommon. It really is not uncommon for students to really self-select. Now, what I would recommend is if you have questions about a program, about a potential fit, about your post-MBA goals and how our MBA program can help support you, please do reach out to our admissions office. And we're more than willing to help. We have events that take place throughout the year that may be a really good resource for you to attend to help answer some of the lingering questions in which you may have. We have had a chance to connect with a few of our alumni today, but we also have current students who have set aside time and are willing to answer your questions as well. So again, as you go along your MBA journey, remember you're not doing this alone. And this is really just beginning our conversation and our opportunity to help and support you in your journey as well. So again, if you do have questions, please know that we are here to help. So again, I did want to make sure that we're able to get out of here at a reasonable time. So I want to make sure that I was able to close things down. I want to say to Mike, here with Claire Mid and our alumni guests. Again, thank you for such an amazing session. I know I enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure the audience did as well. For those of you who may have joined late, again, my name is Douglas Alfred. And again, I'm one of the directors of Masters in Admissions here at the Tepper School of Business. I want to thank you all for choosing to join us today. And lastly, again, to the audience, you've shown a commitment to being engaged. You've made this event really special, and we look forward to more of the same as you continue working with the admissions team as we work to support you again on your journey. So again, to everyone, thank you for joining today, and we look forward to connecting with you all again. So thank you.